Well, this is embarrassing and sad. I lost my entire script of about 2,300 words, my computer froze, and well, this video has been robbed of a coherent review. Well, regardless, I still want to talk about this, so I hope I have decent enough improv skills. Anyways, I know everyone seems to have their attention on the Harbingers, Sumeru, the Golden Apple Archipelago, and well, Kazuha Story Quest has just been forgotten, it seems. A lot of people wanted a Kazuha Story Quest. It was speculated whether he would even get one on his rerun. I mean, I was one of them. So, yeah. Here it is. The hype has finally been answered, and it didn't even last very long. But still, I think the quest is worth a review. Overall, I found the quest really enjoyable while I was in the process of playing the quest. But now that I'm making a review, going back and looking through the quest in greater detail, there's a lot of problems that I'm going to cover shortly as we get into the review. I'll speak more about the overall quest in its entirety at the end when I'm done covering its parts. Okay, so at the first scene of the quest, we just get attacked by some random samurai dude who seems to have mistaken us for Kaedehara Kazuha. And you know what? I play as Lumine, and I don't see how it makes any sense for the attacker to mistake us for Kaedehara Kazuha. Like, come on. Forget about the vision. We look nothing alike. So I'm pretty sure the scene was made under the assumption that Ether is the main character. And so there's been a kind of a joke going on throughout the community before Kazuha was released that he really looked like Ether. And yeah, I'm pretty sure this is just based off of that, but like, not a lot of people really believe that they look alike anymore. I think the term Canadian Ether has mostly died out. So yeah, that made our attacker look pretty stupid. But that's okay, because we have chosen to match his stupidity with an arguably even bigger piece of stupidity, and that is letting him go. Like, you cannot convince me that we, as the Traveler, the one who has fought against an Archon and two Fatui Harbingers, did not have the power to just chase that guy down and just take him out for good. He's already established himself as a threat, and we know that, like, he just randomly attacked people who he thinks is Kazuha, so why the heck did we just let him go right there? Like, it just seems like nonsense. But, of course, for the sake of protecting the plot, we ended up letting him go anyways, and so we're gonna go to Kazuha and try to warn him about the guy. Alright, so we arrive in Rito, where we go and look for Kazuha, and it seems like there's a commotion amongst the town people, in which Kazuha's reputation has completely taken a 180, and now is being beloved and revered by everyone there. Now that the Vision Hunt decree is abolished, Kazuha gets to enjoy all the fame and reputation without all the negative state propaganda and being treated like a wanted terrorist anymore. His feat also didn't go unnoticed. Everyone knows him as the one who blocked Raiden's Musa no Hitotachi, which solidifies his friend's ambitions into legacy. And you know what? Even though he himself doesn't really care about fame and reputation, I really like this moment for him. Because if you remember what happened when we first met Kazuha, and we talked to him, people treated us like legendary heroes, man. We stopped Osile, we defeated Child, plus we had the Storm Terror crisis in Mondstadt. We were so freaking special at that point that it was starting to look like a power fantasy. I remember Kazuha saying something to us back then that left an impression on me.
My humble abilities are negligible compared to your incredible feats.
But the reality is, here and now, whether he wanted it or not, he has proven that he is also worthy of great reputation by blocking the Musa no Hitotachi. His feats are no longer humble nor negligible compared to ours. And you know what? I think he deserves the reputation, and I'm happy he's finally getting it within the story. So anyways, the Tenryou Commission came and wanted an audience with Kazuha, and they were being quite friendly. And this comes as absolutely zero surprise to me, because I didn't think the Vision Hunt decree was all that popular in Inazuma anyways. Even people in the Tenryou Commission were doubting it when it happened, so it wasn't really that hard for them to accept Kazuha. So anyways, our quest to find Kazuha continues in Tenshukaku, and we casually waltz in through the front door and find ourselves in the middle of a conversation. Kazuha is talking to Kamaji. Remember this guy? He's the one who got waxed by Raiden in a super one-sided fight. Anyways, they're talking about restoring the Kaedehara clan. You know, give them back their own residence, prestige, all that stuff that feudalism involves. Here we get a nice little summary of those who didn't play the Irodori Festival. The Kaidahara clan history is explored much further in depth over there. But for the sake of people who haven't played the quest, I think this little summary is good enough for them to continue the quest and understand what's going on. Anyways, apparently there's been rumors going around that Kazuha used the power of a delusion to block the Musa no Hitotachi. And then this happened.
Also, eyewitnesses saw him using the power of Electro in addition to that of Anima. As a result, the falsehood that Kaidahara Kazuha was using a delusion began to spread.
What? But that doesn't make sense. Using a delusion turns you old and frail, and Kazuha still looks fine.
That is correct. However, to some people, the idea of a single person wielding two elements at once is a more inconceivable notion still.
Can we just talk about how terrible this sequence was? Seriously, Paimon, you of all people should know better than this. Child wielded the power of both a vision and a delusion against us. Senora is a cryo-delusion user, and also the Crimson Witch of Flames. Literally every other Fatui enemy uses a delusion. Seriously, this is stupid as hell. Using a delusion does not age you. It's only those specific brand of visions that was distributed to the resistance that rapidly aged you. So the crowd's rumors, although wrong, are still perfectly valid. Kamaji was being dumb for agreeing with her, and we were being dumb for not correcting her. The writers really dropped the ball on this one completely. Like, bruh. Okay, so next up we finally tell them about the attacker. I assume we told them about the suspicious sword he wielded, because without it, it would be really, really difficult to identify him without that distinct-looking sword that people should know about. We're operating under the assumption that we have told them about the strange blade that the attacker was carrying. This detail will be important later on. Alright, so thus we begin a little detective work to find the attacker's identity. We end up being directed to a seemingly related case of two missing people, and one of them is a dude from the Amenoma clan, where we get some more lore on the swordsmithing arts. This is where that little detail about the attacker's sword could have been mentioned. Like, seriously, man. This old man is a veteran of swordsmithing. He himself even said Yuya, the guy who disappeared, wanted to bring back a great gift, and predicted that Yuya was eyeing a rare weapon. Hello? Perfect opportunity to bring up that cursed sword. We even later told him that there was an attacker and yet refused to ask him about the sword or even bring it up. Maybe he would have known something about it based on design patterns, fighting style, or craftsmanship. Like, it just seems dumb to me that we did not ask a freaking swordsmith about a super unique looking sword in a case that's relevant to Yuya's disappearance. Like, guys, we suck at being detectives. This is why Heizou has a career in being a detective and we don't. So unfortunately, our incompetence in investigation does not end there. We end up going to the Nagato household and meet the spouse of the second guy who went missing. We discovered that Mr. Nagato is an obsessive collector and was preparing to sell an exotic weapon to Amenoma Yuya. Once again, we completely ignore the connection between this guy being a collector of unique weapons and the very, very obvious unique weapon that the assailant used to attack us with. Sachiko here even saw her own husband looking at the weapons he bought. You know what that means? It means she actually saw the cursed sword. All that would have taken for us was to tell her about the attacker, describe the weapon, and then she would have confirmed for us that the weapon in the warehouse and the attacker's weapons are actually the same. This was a golden opportunity to just connect all the dots together and suddenly have everything to make sense. And we missed it. We just absolutely blew it. Guys, can we just ask Heizou for help next time? This investigation really sucked, man. Well, despite all of those pretty glaring mistakes, the plot demands that we advance the story, and so we did. And so we go to the warehouse, assuming that that was the domain we'd go to, only to find out that the fire collapsed the warehouse and caved it in. Isn't there a whole bunch of other rare collectibles in there? Oh man, the Nagato family are going to be in some big financial trouble. Luckily enough, there's traces of Tatarigami energy that we can track to, once again, to advance this case. Really, if it weren't for this, it's a dead end. On the way, we find a note written by Nagato, on a piece of cloth no less, revealing the truth. And, wait. Isn't his surname Nagato? What's his first name? Are we seriously gonna go the entire story without learning his full name? What the heck, Hoyo? Well, it looks like he's dead because he couldn't have gotten very far after this. Anyways, apparently it was Yuya who attacked us. Yep. And then we confront him at a nearby little island. And it turns out it really was the sword talking this whole time, because there's no real reason Yuya could act like that. This should come as an absolute surprise to no one, because I'm sure any of us with a brain would have suspected that it was the sword that was talking. It really stood out, you know? He gives us his monologue, his desire for revenge against the Raiden Shogun in the name of his master, who is an ancestor of Kazuha, and of course, this line.
Now, give your body over to me!
What?
Okay. So you know, I find it poetic that a sword has used and discarded countless humans as a means to reach Inazuma, which is a subversion of the fact that humans frequently discard tools and objects when it is no longer useful to them. Honestly, what good is morality and ethics when you were born as an object? I always thought it was weird that Paimon wanted to judge the actions of a sword from the moral standards of living beings. When they treat you like an object, nobody really bats an eye. But when you do the same onto them, all of a sudden you're the one that's terrible. Don't you find that amusing? Anyways, we defeat the Ishin Blade, and you know what? I knew from the start that this very edgy edge of metal doesn't stand a chance against Raiden. We really could have just shattered it and threw its remains to the ocean like a certain stand from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. But I guess Kazuha feels some sort of responsibility to his own heritage and decided to take the blade and engage in some very, very convoluted therapy. All we needed to do was to find a hideout full of Ronin samurai and massacre them completely unprovoked, until the blade decided to give up and engage in some self-reflection. Oh my god. Talk about the hypocrisy. What right doth we and Paimon have to judge the blade for victimizing people when we turn around and assault and murder a bunch of samurai? This is quite the glaring double standard, if I do say so myself. Well, regardless, the sword ultimately reached its limits, its magical aura faded, and the poor conditioning exposed. We then get some backstory with the blade and the blacksmith. And this is kind of where I want to go outside the quest, because I need to make another comment on the Iridori Festival questline. We know Scaramouche was responsible for the fall of the Raiden Gokuden, and one of Kazuha's descendants were attacked and beaten by Scaramouche. None of that was mentioned in this quest, and that kind of cheapens the experience, to be honest. Those who never played the Iridori Festival won't grasp the full context, and thus be deprived of the emotional weight and significance of the past as it relates to the present. Imagine if the Scaramouche's actions were shown in the Kazuha quest. For newer players who missed out on the event, there would be a stronger emotional connection to the past because the one responsible for the fall of the Ishin art and the other schools is still out there in the world, bridging the connection between the past and the present. But anyways, back to the story. The blade, after a phase of silence, reminiscence, and soul-seeking, found a new memory of the will of his master. It thus agrees to free Yuya, and we give it one last battle to end the case of the disappearances and the case of the mysterious attacker. In the end, he chooses to sacrifice his own consciousness to restore the sword to its former glory, and gives himself up to Kazuha as the last surviving user of the Ishin art. Oh no. Well guys, I think we have to say goodbye to the fillet blade. Upon returning to Kamaji to give an answer to the Kaedehara clan question, Kazuha decided to turn down the offer and proceeds to explain his intention to continue the Ishin art. Thus means he will travel with this new blade in hand, gaining more experience and skill along the way. That makes the residency of Inazuma even less attractive, but we knew Kazuha wouldn't just decide to stop being a wanderer. Like, come on. He wouldn't have accepted the offer regardless. So, on a side note, it was revealed that the Nagato man was alive. Really? All the hints in the story pointed to his death, but he's just alive. That's kind of disappointing, to be honest. Well, at least the Nagato household avoided the worst possible ending. I guess now they can finally face their problems together, which is nice. So back to Kazuha. He ultimately decides to hang out with Beto for a little longer, and likely he will go off to travel on his own. Eventually. That's exciting. There's a real chance of seeing Kazuha in a future Archon quest. And of course, his journey with Kago Tsurube Ishin is now a side story for him, which might be relevant later. Maybe we could see him in Snezhnaya because of his ancestor fleeing there. But anyways, that's the end of this quest. No mention of Tomo here, by the way. He also wasn't mentioned in Kazuha's illusion in the Golden Apple Archipelago event, so I guess this is the end for him. Unfortunate to all those who wish for more information about them. Anyways, that's the end of my review. The quest had a bunch of problems and probably wasn't what most fans wanted, but in the end, Kazuha got a brand new sword, it looks cool, and while the story was lacking because of too many easily preventable mistakes, it was still a decent story. Also, rest in peace, Fillet Blade. You played your role, but I guess you've been replaced. Anyways, I really need to upload videos faster, because something like this should have come out at the start of his banner. Well, I hope I do better next time. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.